Hey, how's it going? My name is Josh Moon. This is my FTT 100 Introduction to Firearms Week 7 assignment. Today we're going to go into the cycles of function and the field stripping and cleaning of this firearm. Alright, so we're going to get into the cycles of function, but before I do, I want to clear this weapon to ensure that there's no ammunition that's in the chamber that could be fired off accidentally. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to pick it up. Weapon's on safe, and it's pointed in a safe direction. I'm going to ensure that there's no magazine. Obviously there's not. There's no ammunition inside the star chamber. I don't know if you can see this, but the chamber is completely empty. I physically and visually inspected, and this weapon is clear. There is also no live ammunition on my workstation or in this area. For my dummy round, to show the cycles of function, I have a blank expended round. Alright, the primer has been struck. There's no propellant inside of this round. This is what I use when I'm instructing trainees how the cycles of function work and how to load magazines, so on and so forth. But this is completely expended and the primer has been struck as well. This is not a live round. So first I'm going to load the round into the magazine, which is empty. Ensure that it's seated properly. Alright, now I'm going to pick up my AR. The bolt is locked to the rear, which is a preferable method before loading magazines, so you don't have to worry about it not seating properly. I'm going to insert the magazine. Pull it down and make sure it's seated. Now the first cycle of function that we're going to go over is the feeding. Alright, so feeding is when the bolt moves forward, the locking lug grabs the back of the round and inserts it into the chamber. So now there is a round in the chamber. We can check by seeing that there's nothing else in the magazine. Alright, so the simultaneous step that happens is the locking. So as the bolt moves forward, pushes the round into the chamber, the bolt twists, and those locking nugs on the bolt and inside the star chamber, they turn to lock the chamber. After locking, there's firing. So put the weapon on semi, squeeze the trigger, bang. Alright, I'm going to hold the trigger down. After firing is unlocking. So when the weapon fires, it immediately expends the round, or pulls the round out of the chamber. So as the round is fired, the propellant explodes, the round goes out, and the gas that's accumulated goes up through the gas tube back to the bolt and pushes the bolt rearward with enough force to extract the round out of the chamber. So the locking lugs unlock, it spins back to the 12 o'clock and starts pulling rearward, and this is the extraction portion of the cycles of function. After extracting, you have ejecting, and that's when the extractor, which is spring loaded, throws the round out of the ejection port as such. So after extracting, there's ejecting. After ejecting, there's cocking. Alright, so cocking is when the hammer that strikes the primer, or strikes the firing pin, resets itself, and the bolt catches the very top of the hammer and resets it and pulls it back to the rear, ready for you to cycle another round. This is the 8 steps of cycles of function. Alright, so after we're done firing our weapon, right, we're done for the day, we're going back home, we want to clean our weapon. Now, if you're in a field environment, I'm going to demonstrate how to field strip this weapon. Field stripping is different than actually disassembling the weapon entirely. You don't want to pull every tiny piece apart to clean it, because there's the potential of losing it. So when I'm in the field and I disassemble my weapon, I only break it down to its main major groups. Alright, so again, the weapon is on safe. The bolt is locked to the rear. There's no rounds in the chamber, there's no source of ammunition that is inside the magazine well. I'm going to ride the bolt forward, and I'm going to disassemble the weapon. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my bore snake. I already have a cloth on here. It's perfectly white, it hasn't been touched yet. I'm going to run it through the chamber, make sure there's no carbon buildup in the chamber. I want to insert it through the chamber and out the muzzle so that if there's any dirt, I'm not pulling it into the upper receiver and creating more work for myself. As you can see, there has been some carbon in there. I fired this weapon a few times. Not a whole lot, just because most of the time I'm using M4s at the range for the Army, and I don't have a lot of time for myself. Alright, so I see that there's carbon buildup in there. I'm going to grab my bore snake. I'm going to do the same thing. And this bore snake, it has brass bristles that are inside of it that'll scrape and eat away at the carbon buildup that's inside of the weapon itself. I got a knot. Alright, again, inside the star chamber and out through the muzzle, preventing from any more dirt carbon to get into the upper receiver. Put a fresh cloth. And I'm going to feed it through one more time. There. And it's white, all white. Alright, for the bolt carrier group, I'm going to use a nylon brush and this Modern Spartan Systems carbon destroyer that was provided by Sonoran Desert Institute. I'm going to put a tiny bit on the friction points. It doesn't take a lot. And I'm just going to scrub away all the excess carbon. And I'm going to fast forward through this just so you guys don't see me doing this for 20 minutes. Alright, I've cleaned the upper receiver's barrel, the bolt carrier group, charging handle, the buffer spring, even the lower receiver inside of the trigger mechanism and inside the magazine well, which some people overlook sometimes. They don't realize how much dirt and debris get built up inside of the magazine well. Alright, so moving on, before I'm finished, I want to make sure that I put a protective coat. The Army, we use CLP, but right here I have the Spartan Accuracy Oil. I'm just going to put a small coat along all of the friction point surfaces on the bolt carrier group and inside of the upper receiver, so that there's not a lot of friction, and it helps make the weapon run smoother. And normally I just use my fingers. And this is a fairly new bolt. I haven't put a lot of rounds through this. It shouldn't take a lot of lubricant to keep it working properly. There's not a lot eaten away from the friction points. It's still got the bluing on it. A small amount. Make sure the buffer spring is lubricated. There's nothing more that I hate than when I can hear the buffer and buffer spring making that in the buffer tube. I can always yell at my trainees when I can hear their buffer tubes and buffer springs scratching against the buffer tube. You know, I always tell them their weapon's not clean, which most of the time it's not. And I still have some residue left over on my hands, so I'll put that excess oil on the buffer, and then I'm going to reassemble the weapon. Make sure to put a small amount inside of the upper receiver where the charging handle slides back and forth. Now I'm going to perform a functions check just to make sure I put it back together properly. So the weapon's unsafe, attempt to fire, nothing should happen. I'm going to put it on semi, squeeze the trigger, hold, charge the weapon, release. I should hear a metallic click. I'm going to squeeze it again, charge it one last time, put the weapon on safe, and functions check is complete. This has been my FTT 100 Introduction to Firearms Week 7 assignment, and thank you for watching.